I'm Mark Doty, and this is the Moog Sub Phatty. Let's take a look at the oscillator section of the Moog Sub Phatty. Okay, I have it set to a sawtooth wave at 16 feet. It's only oscillator 1. The filter's all the way open. There's no resonance. And we have the envelope, the amplifier envelope, set to full sustain and nothing else. So we're just hearing the oscillator here. Here is the sawtooth wave at 16 feet. And of course, we have different octave settings. You might be able to hear there that it holds its pitch really well, and it holds the waveform sound really well too. It sounded like a sawtooth wave all the way through the range. We also have the other waveform possibilities. Here's a square wave. Not the squarest of square waves, but it's still nice. Also the pulse wave. And a triangle wave. Very warm and deep triangle wave. Also, because this is a Moog and they do the fantastic variable waveform thing that first started with the Micro Moog, also made an appearance in the Crumar Spirit and in the Voyager, etc. But here it is again, and we're glad that it's here because we not only get those waveforms that we're used to, but also the waveforms that exist between them. So you have a wide variety of waveform choices, and gosh, wouldn't it be cool if you could modulate the waveform on a synthesizer of this size and price? Well, I have good news for you later in the modulation section. Also, there is the sub oscillator for oscillator 1. Sub-oscillator divides the frequency of oscillator 1 and gives you a square wave an octave below the frequency of oscillator 1. And you have the ability to set the volume of that to whatever you like. Another thing we should talk about here in the mixer, we're lumping the mixer section into the oscillator section. This mixer, if you'll notice, it goes from 0 to 12. And why does it do that? Because they are basically designing this in such a way that it does what the original Mini Moog was purported to do, which was if you jacked the mixer volume all the way up, it's slightly distorted at its maximum level and gave a pleasing, distinctive sound. So that's what they have done with this mixer. You can hear the volume go up, but there's also a little bit more that happens. So that is a big low end, and it's also has that Moogy warmth even before we get to the filter, which is pretty awesome. We also have a second oscillator, oscillator 2. That's the second one. We have all the same functions as the first oscillator, except for we have the ability to adjust its frequency. That's pretty awesome. You know, you have your waveform, the same sort of variable waveform. And that's super awesome. We also have the opportunity for sync, which is not the most common of Moog features, especially in the older Moogs. But sync, hard sync, forces oscillator 2 to restart its waveform at the point at which oscillator 1 restarts its. God, that's a weird sentence. But that's what it does. Now, it's different between this hard sync and the hard sync you find on other synthesizers. So other synthesizers don't have variable waveforms. So you have a lot of opportunity to come up with new timbres as the sync forces oscillator 2 to restart with oscillator 1. You can hear the changes I'm making by adjusting the waveform of oscillator 1. Same true of oscillator 2. Which is an uncommon Moog sound to a certain degree, at least as far as this synthesizer, because this has a different sound than some other synthesizers, some other Moog synthesizers. So you're getting something really cool with the fact that you can do the hard sync. And what's more is we have a whole huge amount of ability to modulate that frequency of oscillator 2 once we get into the modulation section, so we can get some really cool sync effects. And we can also overdrive oscillator 2 along with oscillator 1. That is a really full sound. And at this point, we can get some really great vintage sounds out of this thing, and a few less vintage sounds, especially as we get further into the filter and into the modulation. You'll notice that the sub oscillator also goes up to 12, so we can sort of add that low level distortion to it as well, which is why we have such a full sound right now. So we also, how many times can I say also? We also have noise. Now, this setting currently sounds like pink noise or darker, which is awesome because it diminishes the emphasis on the higher frequencies because we psychoacoustically seem to hear them better than the lower frequencies. So pink noise has more of a bassy sound. And we can use that later on. But this is essentially the oscillator section. One thing I'd like to point out that is, if you have a mini Moog and you'd like to adjust the entirety of all of the oscillators up or down an octave, it's a hassle because you have to turn the individual switches. The Sub Phatty has the opportunity to switch everything up and down with these handy octave buttons. So you have the ability to shift those oscillators in tandem up and down various frequencies, which is really helpful. Also, this is the way that you get past having the 2-octave keyboard, because if you can immediately and very quickly switch octaves without very much hassle, you have the ability to shift where the synthesizer is frequency-wise relatively simply. Hopefully with a little more grace than I just demonstrated. Okay, and that is the oscillator section and the mixer section. Oh, I might as well bring this in. We have glide. You have the ability to adjust your glide rate. And when we get into the under the hood section, we'll be able to talk about the glide rate because we can adjust it to different types of glide. Right now it's set to exponential, which is good. All of that timbral variation, and we haven't even touched the filter yet.